In a previous video, we talked about R packages, how R uses them to extend and expand its functionality, how to install these packages, and how to update them. We also talked about how to use these packages in an R notebook, so in our code. I would like to talk a little bit more about how to use packages in our notebooks. And I will try to emphasize some guidelines. The first step, whenever we need the functionality of a package, is to load that package into R, not RStudio. RStudio is just the environment where we work with R. So we are loading the package in R. I have a test file, a test notebook opened, and a package is loaded in code by adding a code chunk. And let's load the package table1. The function we use to load a package is called library. And we give it the name of the package we want to load. In this case, table1. Autocomplete to the save here. It gives us options. We just run this code chunk. And once that's run, if we go into packages and scroll down, the package table1 is checked, meaning that it's loaded in the environment. Let's preview the file just to make sure that we have started looking at the output. And there's nothing more than this to loading a package. So let's discuss a little bit what this package loading does. It basically takes the files from the disk, parses them through the R engine, and exposes to us the name of the functions that the package has. Usually, developers tend to group together in a single package multiple functions that serve related purposes. So in this case, the package table1, let's check table1 package. We can use table1 package functions to describe data, both continuous and categorical, and we'll take a quick look at how we do this. For the purpose of this demo, I will just use a data set that comes prepackaged with R. The package is called empty_cars, and I'll show you what it does. So let's add another line of code in this chunk and print out the first few lines in the data set, in the empty_cars data set. We can do that using the function head and empty_cars. RStudio knows that the package is automatically loaded. This is part of the base R environment, and if we run it, it displays a nicely formatted table with information about various brands of cars. It gives information about miles per gallon, number of cylinders, engine displacement, horsepower, and so forth. We're not going to study the data in detail, so we're going to look at a couple of things, like, for example, using table1 to look at the number of cylinders variable for these data set. Let's briefly look at how the file looks like right now. So we do go select the viewer panel and just do a save of the current file. It should refresh and it should show us the output from this code chunk. So let's use a function of the table1 package to display a summary of the variable cylinder in terms of frequencies and percentages. We do this in another R code chunk, and the function is create cat table, summarize categorical variables. When we use this function, we have to tell it first what variables from the data set we want to look at, and we give this as a vector, and then we have to tell it what data we want this to come from. So data equals empty cars, and we run it. Once we run this, this little table shows up and tells us how many cars have 4 cylinders, how many 6, how many 8, and gives us percentages out of the total of 32 cars that are included in this data set. But what happens if we don't quite remember the function? We know that the function is in the table 1 package, but we do not remember what's called. There is a notation in R, and with the help of autocomplete in RStudio, we can trick it into showing us what functions are being exposed by the table 1 package to us. So let's insert another R code chunk, and I'll do this manually this time just to show you how. Again, 3 backticks. We tell it it's our code and close it with another 3 backticks. In here, we start by typing in the name of the package. And if we add 2 colons, RStudio will list all the functions that are available in this package. And if you scroll through them, it will give you a brief overview of how that function should be called and what it does. So we're again to create a category table, and it's the same parameters. And if we run it, it should give us the same output. Remember, if you don't remember exactly how the function is named, but you have an idea in which package that function is, start with the package, 2 columns, and then the autocomplete will give you a list of functions that are available in that package. One thing that is important to remember is that once you close RStudio, the packages that you used in your R notebook are no longer loaded in memory when you reopen to continue working on your assignment, for example. So it is important that whenever you reopen a R notebook to continue your work, to run the entire notebook again. That is, to run all the chunks, so every action that you took before is being recreated for the new session in which you're working. I would suggest you go to run and say run all, which will run all the code chunks in your file and will set you exactly where you left last time you edited this file. Save it to just show the output and keep going. There is a special situation in R that happens when the same name is used for functions belonging to different packages, and those packages are both loaded in the environment at the same time. I know that the function to calculate const_d that we use to determine effect size is present in at least 2 packages available in R, and we'll use both of them in the projects and assignments in the next weeks. If you try to load a package that defines such a function that already has been defined by a package that has been loaded before, and let me show you what I mean by that. So let's start a new R code chunk and say that we load the F size library, right? And let's run it. It's Control Enter on Windows or Command Enter or on Mac. So the fsize library is installed. If we try to load the Psych package, which also defines colons-d, when we try to run this, Control Enter, R will give us a message saying that it's loading the package Psych. But from the package side, this object, this function, colons-d, masks the same function defined in the package fsize. Now, the order in which we load the packages is important. The most recent package loaded, in this case Psych, takes precedence. So if we just call colons-d function, okay, R will run the function defined in the most recently loaded package, like defined in Psych. For this reason, if you run into this kind of problem, the functions are both available, but we have to use the full, let's call it, path to the function. And if we want to use the function in the colon-d function in fsize, we start with the name of the package, like we did with table 1, fsize, and then colon-d. Same with Psych package, colon-d. Okay? And in this way, you don't have to unload the package or do other tricks to make sure that you're using the proper function. By just using this specific syntax, prefixing the function with the name of the package followed by 2 columns, you can actually run exactly the code you need for that specific application. Information about packages is available in help, and I went over this in the previous video. If we want to look at the colons-d function in fsize, colons-d, we look for colons-d, and it tells us that it's defined in fsize and Psych. And if we look here, it gives us the help, defines the arguments and all that. So we have the information we need to run it. As a recap, functionality in R is implemented as packages, which we load whenever we need these packages and the functionality that they provide. It is important to rerun all the code chunks in your notebook whenever you pick up work that you started before, just to bring it to a fresh, clean slate. If you run into a situation where a function from a package masks the same function from another package, use the full path to the function prefixed with the package name followed by 2 colons and the name of the function.